Hi again, I'm Drake. I'm back now and content for this week. I was just getting to the point of showing you Collaborize Classroom, where you can respond to your discussion prompt for the week. So let me go back and pull that up. And I'm going to screen share. There we go. So as usual, the discussion prompt is here in Collaborize Classroom, week 6. And the prompt, as I mentioned before, is to reflect on the process of writing a grant. What are your concerns? Have you written a grant before? If so, was it successful? Share what you're requesting and to whom you plan to submit. So at this point, I just want to share a little bit of information with you on grant writing. I mentioned before that grant writing is considered technical writing. It's not the same as writing a story. And a lot of times, the first time people write a grant, they have a very difficult time separating the creative writer in them from the technical writer. So make sure that what you are thinking about as you write your grant is presenting a compelling argument for why your project, the project that you want to present, is the project the grantor wants to fund, okay? There's usually lots of competition with grant writing. Most grants are competitive. And so you need to use data. You need to have a solid purpose. You need to impart that you know what you're doing and how you're going to do it. So you need to demonstrate you have an implementation plan and a plan for monitoring what you are going to do with the funds and what you are going to, if you're asking for funds for a particular bit of software or a particular bit of hardware, you need to talk explicitly about how the software or the hardware is going to be value added for your students or for the teachers at your site. And so purpose, value added, implementation plan, monitoring for results, those are all very important pieces of writing a grant. So not a lot of flowery, verbose language. It's straightforward technical writing. So one of the things I was thinking about is you've all had experience doing ed tech infographics. And you might want to go back to the data that you collected when you took the course. I believe it was the first course, 501, that had the infographic information in it. There's a lot in that particular class, the Foundations of Technology. You went and searched for ed tech facts and you developed an infographic on some of those facts, and you might be able to use some of that again in this grant application. Just something I was thinking about might have a purpose now. Okay, so you do want to pull some data in to grant applications. They usually want to know who's the population that you're serving. Why should this population or subpopulation of students or teachers, schools, be considered most needy or most in need of the support, right? So make sure that if it requires some sort of data, that you are, you've researched it and you've collected the data that it wants. Most grantors want to know how successful the grant funding was in accomplishing your goals or your objectives for the money. And there will be a section in most grants about how you intend to measure your success. And again, this is not soft and fuzzy stuff. They want to know specifically, how can you actually, what are the indicators that are measurable that you will actually be able to say that this funding made a difference? So not soft and fuzzy kinds of indicators. They want something measurable, okay? All right, so we're going to move back to the assignment. So that's all that is on this form for this week. And again, this is the copy of the assignment that I've posted in your Hangout folder for week 6. All right, so we'll take a quick peek at the rubric. And you'll see on this rubric that the elements of the grant are what are listed in the far left column. So in this case, and again, remember, this grant application is based on the Orange County Q application. There's an abstract required, a statement of need, and this is where you would use your data, the goals and objectives for the funding, as well as whatever it is that you are planning on purchasing with the funds. What are the goals and objectives of the purchase, right? And then what methodology are you going to use? This is where I was talking about most grantors want to know about measurable outcomes, and that's where this is in this particular grant. Integration, in this case, this is specifically about technology. So this particular grant, the OCCUE grant, and so wants to know, how are you going to accomplish that? Budget and sustainability. In most grant applications, this is a concern of grantors as well. If they give you the money, it's one-time money, right? So how do you keep doing whatever it is you say your goals and objectives are for this funding? How are you going to sustain that once the funding is over? The project timeline, how you're going to evaluate your success. Okay, and this says both formative and summative evaluation tools and activities. And remember, I mentioned they want indicators that are measurable. Okay, happiness, unless you have some sort of survey that you can bring both quantitative and qualitative data to bear with, is not considered an outcome. So make sure that you are thinking in the way of measurable indicators here. Dissemination and report forms. So how is the project intended to be replicated by other educators? How do you plan to share it? What's a realistic plan for sharing the results of your project, as well as the lessons you've learned? Are you going to publish? Are you going to replicate it? Are you going to keep track of it on a blog? Are you going to do mailings? Are you going to do presentations? Okay, so that's part of the grant application as well. Now, remember, not all grant applications are going to have these same areas, but they're going to be very close. Most grant applications are going to be very close. If you choose a grant application that doesn't line up exactly, then what I'll be doing is looking at your application, and I will be thinking about, from the application itself, the other than the OCCUE grant application, I'll be looking at that application you've chosen, looked at the parts that are required, and that will become the components of the one you chose, will become the elements down the left-hand side of the rubric. And I'll match them up as close as possible to what's already on this rubric. But your grant that you find might have elements that aren't on here, which you will have to address. And it might not have some elements that are on this particular rubric at all. But as I said, I do a lot of grant writing, I do a lot of grant scoring, so I think I'll be able to pretty much pick out those elements and know what the grantors are looking for, regardless of whether or not you choose an Education Foundation grant, you choose to do the OCQ grant, or whether you do something like Donors Choose. I just want to make sure that you understand that this is technical writing and that you don't ignore anything that's requested. If you just gloss over it or you ignore it, your grantor will not fund it. And in this case, your professor will not give you full credit, okay, for that section. So make sure that you are fully meeting each component of the grant application. Okay, so let's see, technical writing, use your ed tech infographic information if it's appropriate. Tell a story with data. Make sure that your grant application is explicitly purposeful, value added. You're explaining without any shadow of a doubt what the value added is for your plan, your implementation plan, that you are going to monitor the results, that you're going to share the outcomes. You know, make sure you're letting folks know in that application how the population that you're serving with this funding is going to be better off. Okay? So we're going to have a hangout on Thursday again. We're going to be back to Thursday night for our hangout, and I'll send you the invitation for that. Again, it's voluntary, so if you can't make it, that's fine. And otherwise, I think that we're all caught up. There's not a lot of other information to give you this week. I'll keep adding to the Hangout resource folder for this week, and if you come up with anything, it is a shared folder. So if there's anything you want to add to the folder, feel free to do so. All right. Again, have a great Valentine's Day, a great long weekend. Have a good week, and I'll see you on Thursday night. Bye-bye for now.